Welcome back. My name is Brittany. I am new here on YouTube and this is my second video. Today we are going to talk about previous year's reading, how I track my reading, and then what I hope to get into this reading year. The past couple years I have done just like physical journaling method to track my books. This is for 2020, 2021, and most of 2022. In 2022 I switched over to an iPad for the first time. And I've been obsessed with digital journaling, creating my own spreads, and tracking my life this way. So I did switch to my iPad to track my books, and then I also use Goodreads. I really enjoy Goodreads more so for the TBR feature, where if there's something I want to read, I just can save it really easily instead of having like notes and screenshots and like all these books in different places. It is nice to just keep it all in one spot. I use kind of this tandem method, my journals and digital planner, to really just more track how I thought about it, track my books, like what I pick up, what I quit, put my thoughts in here, my feelings. Sometimes it's actually really funny to look back and see what I wrote about certain books. One year I did start adding in little book pictures that I had printed off. Yeah, so it's really fun to keep track of my reading in this way and just have a nice visual reminder, representation of the things I enjoyed. Pretty similar on my iPad. I make my own planner and other pages for my iPad on Canva, and then I upload that into GoodNotes, and that's what I use for my daily planner and also just keeping track of books. This is a fun page I had done where I basically just added the pictures of every book cover I had read this year, and then it is nice as the year goes on and now even to reflect back, like, oh yeah, like I remember reading, you know, this in the summer or this in the fall and it was a good time. I like having these visual things to look at. It is really nice. One thing I like about this is I can do more formal book reviews. I can pop that up on the screen where I write down like what I liked, what I didn't like, or just thoughts. Other pages where I have done more of like a fan art and just kind of gush and maybe some fan casting like quotes. Yeah, so it's just really fun to do that. Track my books by month. Sometimes I will put, like within my normal planner, I will put little pictures of like what I read throughout the week, but then I have like an overall page where I track what I read during the month. I think I'll have that page again where I have my books of the year. I am trying to be better about updating my Goodreads. I kind of got away from that when I started using my journal, just because then I was double tracking a lot, writing the same thing. I used to have all of these shelves, all of these specific books like tagged and labeled and organized, but I do need to get a little bit better about updating my Goodreads because I have some friends in real life and I just want them to know if a book is right for them. I will pop what I'm looking at up on the screen. I made a cute little Instagram picture recap of the books I had read and just a few of the stats I'm looking at in my core. I like to collect data, track everything, look back. I'm kind of nerdy like that. So it is interesting because I can see a shift in my reading habits from 2022 to 2023, and it'll just be interesting to see what happens this year. In 2020, I read 80 books total, 58 were physical, 22 were audio. In 2021, I read 70 books total, 57 of them were physical and 13 were audiobooks. In 2022, I read 75 books, 53 were physical and 22 were audio. 2023, I read 95 books, which is pretty cool. I have not broken that elusive 100. I did set my Goodreads goal for 100 again this year, but it's not that serious. I really don't care if I read 50 or 100 books. I would love to read all the things. I do have some other hobbies that have kind of taken over my life a little bit, and I think that's actually part of why my book breakdown changed from 2022 to 2023. But really, it would be cool to do because I've never read that many books in a year. No matter how much you read, it doesn't matter if you're picking up great books. But I read some questionable things last year. So we're really just trying to go for quality over quantity, but the number would be cool, I guess. My breakdown for last year's books, I listened to 51 audiobooks. So before I'd listened to 20 books, but I listened to 51 audiobooks. That, I did the math, that is 690.5 hours of listening time. And wow, I had a great audiobook year. I listened to probably some of my favorite stories that way. If you want a video on my favorite narrators or my favorite audiobooks, let me know. I can do something like that. I do really like to show audiobooks some love. My new hobbies that I've gotten into are, like, I'm learning to sew, I learned crochet last year, and then I really like to just play with my iPad and do my planners and stuff. So all of those things require my hands, and so I can't sit down and hold a book, but I can audiobook, and it's great to just like combine two hobbies. Really love audiobooks. I also get like a nice chunk of listening time when I'm commuting to work, cleaning, cooking, just chores. It's nice to just have a really great story keeping you company, right? So I had listened to 51, and then I read 44 books. So again, I just think that swap is interesting, where previously I read more than I listened, and last year I listened way more than I read. And that's just really cool to see. It makes sense as to why that happens with my hobbies. If you would like me to do a flip through of my reading journal and my iPad journaling system, let me know. I do find that kind of stuff a lot of fun, so I can do that. And I know people on BookTube love reading journals, so maybe I can just share some fun things. Last year was the first year I tracked how much I spent on book money. I spent about $400. I sometimes cancel and resubscribe to Kindle Unlimited and Audible, and then I did a couple book hauls like for my birthday, for Christmas, and then just picking up things here and there. I'm not too particular about special editions having the latest and greatest. I love to find a steal, so if I can find a book at a thrift store, like, I'm so happy. And then whatever I don't enjoy or love, I do unhaul, get rid of. I bring to used bookstores so they can pass it on, and then I just fill up my shelves again. So that's kind of my process. I do love to take advantage of Libby, the library app. There's also books within your Amazon Prime membership, Kindle Unlimited. Even if you just do it for a couple months and cancel, I think it's a pretty good price, especially if you can read a couple books in a month with it. They tend to have some newer things. Spotify is new with audiobooks. I think that's a great resource for new, shorter stories, because you only have 15 hours total for one person. So the account holder is the only one who gets those audiobook hours. So my husband and I, like, he was the account holder. We actually canceled it, and then like I signed up because like I needed those hours. But there's lots of ways to get books. The library, I tend to just use Libby instead of going to the library, but I've definitely gone and picked stuff up. And then sharing with friends is great. I have a few books on my shelves that are from friends that I need to read. So that's kind of a soft goal for 2024, is to read and give back those books. Another goal I have for 2024 is to read one nonfiction a month, and I might expand that to include other genres. My primary reading genre is fantasy. I love epic fantasy. Oh my gosh, it's the best. So I think I could kind of do like an and or, like either one. I have a few potential options from my shelves, because as much as I love book shopping, like, don't get me wrong, I love shopping and I can shop with the best of them, I do want to like make progress, because I picked up all these books at one point in my life for a reason. So I would like to read these, and then I can fill them up with new books. Right? The Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, which is a Western. And then I have Outlawed by Anna North. That was a Book of the Month book a few years ago. I've never read a Western, so I feel like that would be an interesting way to spice it up. Read one Western this year. I have a couple classics that would be worth checking out, I think. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And then thrift store, I found this beautiful Jane Austen bind up. A little book ASMR. It's like so huge and fluffy. The words are so tiny, but that's okay. There's Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Mansfield Park. So there's a lot of really great Jane Austen stories in here. I've never read a classic as an adult, so I think that would be fun to check out. Have a few nonfiction and I don't know if it'd be self-help or just kind of like more spiritual books. But one of them is How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. I think this field of science is really interesting. It's about LSD, psychedelics, basically just this type of plant medicine and what it can do. I just find that interesting. I'd like to check it out. I also have The Woman They Could Not Silence. So this is a nonfiction, and this sounds equal parts fascinating and horrifying. There is a little part in the front, and Kate Moore took like transcripts from court, letters, basically any document she could find. She used that to create this book, and it is about Elizabeth Packard. She's a housewife, mother of 6, and she's facing her own battle. The enemy sits across the table and sleeps in the next room. Her husband of 21 years is plotting against her. So he makes a plan to put his wife back in her place, and one summer he commits her to an insane asylum. Like, holy shit, how awful. Like, my God. This happens in the 1860s. I think this is a horrifying concept to be locked up, especially with your wits intact. I don't know if she makes it out alive, how that story goes, but it does sound really fascinating, so I would like to check this out. I have 2 books by Eckhart Tolle that I've had on my shelves for quite some time. The Power of Now and A New Earth. Yeah, A New Earth, Awakening Your Life's Purpose. I do like these kind of woo-woo hippie books. I've heard fantastic things about him as a spiritual author and leader in this space. And I'd just like to get to these. I have started The Power of Now a couple times, and I just think it's time. Yeah, let's see, how far did I get? Oh man, I got pretty far one time. I don't know why. It's kind of, I don't know, there's just like big stuff in these books, so it does just take some brain power to get through. Another one I have tried to start and have not finished is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Another spiritual book, basically, who are you? Well, you're the one reading the book. Okay, well, who is that kind of book? So I would really like to get to this one. There are some rereads I would like to do. I am working through my Skyward reread in order to get to that last book. I might reread The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson as well. The 5th and final book in the first arc of the Stormlight Archive comes out, I think, in December. This was one of my favorite books, and it was in my first video, but I could not for the life of me explain it. Like, it's so epic in scope and in plot. I was like, I don't actually know how to like condense this down into like a 2-sentence description of what this book is about. So I think regardless, a reread would be cool. I've never reread this series, but I do find Sanderson can be pretty satisfying on reread because you get the big reveals the first time you go through his stories, but he does a lot of foreshadowing and you're like, like cool stuff to pick up on. So that is one potential reread for me. Another reread would be the Winnowing Flame trilogy, or starting with Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. I really liked this when I read it last year, and I just keep thinking about it. I don't know, I can't explain it. It was a really cool fantasy world. I really liked the characters. I think it'd be fun to revisit again. So that is it for the series I want to reread. I'm sure a couple more might pop up as I go. I do tend to be a mood reader for sure. I can kind of plan a few things out, but I do prefer to just read where the vibes are at and read where the mood is. I feel like sometimes if I try to force a book, it's just not gonna happen, and then I lose my steam and then I quit reading, and then it's like, I gotta like pick back up again. So I think those are the rereads for now. There are some fantasy classics I really want to get to. Okay, this one feels kind of embarrassing. The first 2 are actually. Harry Potter. I had the series growing up, but I honestly don't remember if I've ever read the series in its entirety. Like, I just can't for the life of me remember if I've read it. So I would like to read this. I have my Harry Potter stack right here, and then I think it would be cool to read Manacled, which is a really popular fan fiction Hermione Draco story. I've heard it's really well done, and it sounds intriguing enough to be like, okay, well, let's binge Harry Potter and read that. So I think this would be a fun fall time moment. I know with Manacled, it is heavily inspired by The Handmaid's Tale, and if you know anything about The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, I would definitely look at the content warnings and just what Manacled is about. I've heard it's pretty dark, it can be pretty upsetting, but written well regardless. So definitely check that out if it sounds like it's up your alley. It's a public domain novel, so you can get it for free. I have it ready to go on my Kindle. I just want to get to these first. This is my other embarrassing admission, and it feels like a reader crime. I've never read Lord of the Rings or watched the movies. I've read and watched The Hobbit. That's it. You know, I know like some of the jokes and like the eye and, you know, my precious, like I know all of those little like things, but I need to like check out source material so I can just like be part of the club. Okay. Another series I would really like to dive into this year is Robin Hobb and her Realm of the Elderlings. It starts with the Farseer trilogy, which I do have, and Assassin's Apprentice is the first book. I was looking through this the other day, and it's actually really cool. Robin Hobb was born in California but then raised in Alaska, and I think that's really fascinating. Just a little, like, actually extra motivating to pick it up. So it says, She was born in California in 1952, but raised in Alaska, where she learned how to raise a wolf cub, to skin a moose, and to survive in the wilderness. When she married a fisherman who fished herring and Kodiak salmon run for half a year, these skills would stand her in good stead. She raised her family, ran a small holding, delivering posts to her remote community, all at the same time as writing her stories and novels. I think that's really cool, and I do wonder like if there would be any kind of like neat Alaskan things in here as we follow Fitz through his journey. So I've heard this is an epic, like devastating but wonderful story about Fitz. There's a couple different series within this world she created. So I would like to check her out. These have been on my shelves for a while, so I think it's time. Another series I would like to check out this year that I own is the First Law trilogy. And I have these, they're not the same. I think I found all of these like at different times at the thrift store, but I do like these nice big floppy paperbacks. Oh yeah, it's the best. The First Law trilogy starts with the Blade itself. It is a grimdark fantasy, and I think it's more of a character study. So we follow a barbarian, a nobleman, and an inquisitor turned torturer. So you definitely follow some questionable people. I've heard the audiobook narration for this done by Stephen Pacey is really good too. So I might, when my Spotify hours renew, maybe I'll like start listening to that and just bounce back and forth to just get momentum. But I've heard this is really good. And when I look at my past reading year for 2023, I kind of tended to like the darker themed stories with like the heavier content. So this being grimdark just sounds really appealing. Game of Thrones. I really love the show. I've never read the books, and that kind of feels like a crime. Straight to jail. Like, no, I think it would be really cool to read these books. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I do enjoy like the source material of media. I know we don't have a conclusion to this, but I've heard some of these books are really fantastic. I do love epic fantasy, so like, I don't know, why not just dive in? I have two sci-fi I would like to check out this year, Dune and Leviathan Wakes. I didn't think I was a sci-fi girly, but I really enjoyed Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, and that is a young adult sci-fi, and they're like, you know, flying fighter pilots in space and like shooting down aliens. It's pretty cool. And then Red Rising, like it does take place in space, and like those space battles were so fucking cool. Like, oh my god, they were so epic. I really liked it. So I would like to check out these two series. I've had both of these for a while, and I think it's just time. That is it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you felt inspired by reading goals. Maybe something I said sounded good. Pick it up with me. Hopefully I can get through these this year, and I can tell you all about it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!